Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Erin Corcoran, Wellesley class of 2013, and Assistant Vice President for Alumni Relations and Global Engagement. Welcome. This is such an amazing gathering. We are so grateful for everyone who came out tonight to mark this important occasion, which is part of Wellesley's 150th anniversary year. And what an incredible milestone to celebrate. As part of tonight's exciting event, it is my honor to introduce the 14th president of Wellesley College, Paula A. Johnson, who will deliver our opening remarks and introduce today's speakers for our panel, Women Leading the Way. Many here tonight know President Johnson well. Many have been inspired by her distinguished and groundbreaking career in academic medicine, including her profound impact on women's health. Many are proud of her work as a respected and deeply thoughtful higher education leader, especially at this time of challenge and change. And as alumni and friends of the college, many here today know how President Johnson has transformed Wellesley, led the institution through unprecedented times, and lifted women's education to new heights. I'm especially proud of how President Johnson has strengthened Wellesley's commitment to educate civically minded, globally prepared students, has advanced STEM education, and has made Wellesley more outward-facing as it works to elevate the college's mission to advance the status of women and girls around the world. Finally, I would be remiss if I didn't add that President Johnson was born and raised a few miles from here in Brooklyn and is very proud of it. So please help me welcome to the stage the president of Wellesley College, Paula Johnson.
Erin, thank you. Thank you so much for that gracious welcome. And not only am I from Brooklyn, but my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, was actually born in this neighborhood that was raised to actually create Lincoln Center. And now my sister is an executive VP here. So what goes around comes around. So thank you and welcome to everyone. What an amazing, amazing group. And as always, intergenerational, and it is just so inspiring. And it really is what Wellesley is about. And to come together to celebrate our 150th anniversary and 150 years of educating women who lead the way, and boy, do we need them. As you know, we live in a time of backlash when the values of both higher education and of women's leadership is being blatantly questioned, and it's really being blatantly questioned in the mainstream discourse. And I would say that these are discussions that we would have been shocked at just a few years ago. So it's been so meaningful and refreshing over the last academic year to look backwards at the convictions of our founders, Pauline and Henry Fowle Durant. They established Wellesley on a few core premises that have proven truly enduring. And that is despite intellectual and social fashions over the past 150 years that were sometimes really aligned against their ideals. First, since they saw women as intellectual and spiritual equals of men, they believed that Wellesley should have academics and facilities equal to those of the finest men's colleges, world-class libraries and laboratories, and brilliant, pioneering women faculty and administrators to serve as role models. Second, they believed that higher education for women was not merely about personal gain, but also about leading change in the world. They saw educated women as a powerful force for equality and justice. And Wellesley alumni still proved them right every single day. Third, they saw socioeconomic diversity as critical to Wellesley's excellence and the ability to contribute to our American democracy. They understood the civic purpose of higher education and kept Wellesley affordable for brilliant students of modest means. And long after Henry died and Wellesley became popular with wealthier students, Pauline Durant really fought ferociously against tuition increases. Over the past decade, U.S. colleges and universities have faced declining public trust, much of it focused on costs and benefits. Today, there are signs that colleges and universities are turning things around. The latest Gallup Lumina poll has 44% of Americans saying that they have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in four-year colleges, and this is up 11% over the year before. Our own value proposition is something that we think a lot about at Wellesley. So please allow me to tell you a little bit about how I see this issue. What is not widely understood is that inflation-adjusted college costs have actually been falling over the past decade in both public and private colleges. The Wellesley economist, Dr. Philip Levine, and you might have heard him, he's sometimes on NPR and published in other venues, is one of the country's leading experts on the economics of higher education. His research suggests that highly selective institutions, that their net cost for families and the median income has fallen by 43% since 2015-16. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know this. They only see the sticker price that is formerly known as the comprehensive fee. No, I'm not making excuses. The comprehensive fee is high. But it's not what people pay after financial aid. However, the sticker price hardly tells the full story at Wellesley. Thanks to the generosity of generations of our alumni, Wellesley is one of the few colleges in the United States that is able to admit students regardless of their financial circumstances. Our sizable endowment, yes. And thank you to so many of you here in this room. Our sizable endowment, and I think Debbie Kinsner might be here, but our sizable endowment, who's our chief investment officer, allows this, supporting 45% of our operating budget and 76% of our financial aid. 55% of our students receive financial aid, and in addition to being need blind, Wellesley is tuition-free for students from families earning less than $150,000 a year, and loan-free for families earning less than $100,000. And Wellesley students emerge from the college with very little debt, on average approximately $12,000 for 4 years. So we really want to make sure that all of our potential applicants understand this reality. So transparency has been an institutional goal. And to that end, Dr. Levine has developed an easy-to-use tool for Wellesley that allows families to input some basic financial information and see what kind of financial aid they would receive, which other colleges and universities have now adopted. And this is so important. So if you know young women who are thinking about applying but might be kind of pushed off a little bit, have them go to the website and do this, because I think it gives you the reality of what your access to Wellesley could be, and it very well might change their mind. Of course, the value proposition of Wellesley and of higher ed in general is not just about costs, but also about outcomes. One of the public criticisms of colleges and universities over the past decade is that they don't offer a practical education that helps graduates land good jobs. The liberal arts in particular are often attacked for not being more vocational. But now this may be changing in our favor as well. Many employers, including AI executives, believe that as technical tasks are outsourced to AI, that the qualities that will really matter to employers are those that machines cannot emulate. Yes. These are the qualities best developed by a liberal arts education: critical thinking, judgment in ambiguous conditions, empathy, ethics, and creativity. At Wellesley, as you know, we believe ferociously in the power of the liberal arts and the skills that they developed. And in honor of Wellesley's 150th anniversary, we joined forces with a labor market analytics firm to see how well our graduates are doing in the labor marketplace. Now, we all know Wellesley graduates do great, but we actually haven't had the data. So we learned that over the past 50 years, Wellesley graduates have developed confidence to break barriers, entering fields where women are traditionally underrepresented, such as finance, tech, science, engineering, and politics. Thanks to investments we've made in STEM, Wellesley graduates go on to earn doctorates in science and engineering at higher rates than women graduates of any other liberal arts college in the country. Within 15 years of graduating, over 40% of our alumni have ascended into management roles. The most common titles are CEO, president, and executive director. More than 500 Wellesley alumni have launched startups, and I actually met one young, there you are, who has her tech startup. Our study found that Wellesley graduates succeed and lead more often than alumni of other women's colleges and of highly selected co-ed liberal arts institutions. We're just a little competitive. They are more likely to be employed at Fortune 500 companies. They are more likely to serve in government roles. They are more likely to serve on corporate and nonprofit boards. Our study also confirms that the liberal arts education that Wellesley offers our graduates allows them to go anywhere. Since 2016, Wellesley has ranked first or second among selective colleges for first destination career outcomes. 6 months after commencement, 96% of members of the class of 2025 were employed, attending graduate school, or participating in military or service programs. And Wellesley graduates who have reached the executive level were just as likely to have majored in the humanities as in the social sciences and STEM. So in a few minutes, all of us will get to enjoy a panel discussion with 3 alumni whose Wellesley education prepared them and freed them to pursue leadership roles in very different fields. You'll meet Ophelia Dahl, class of 1994, a Wellesley trustee. She came to Wellesley at age 23 as a Davis Scholar. She intended to be pre-med, but her liberal arts education equipped her to confront a problem or set of problems bigger than any single patient when she encountered communities desperate for medical care in rural Haiti and now in so many other places. She co-founded Partners in Health, a nonprofit dedicated to delivering high-quality healthcare to the world's poor, led as its executive director for 16 years, and serves as an eloquent advocate for the human right to healthcare. Thank you, Ophelia. You will also hear from Colonel Pamela Melroy, class of 83, a Wellesley trustee emerita. A physics and astronomy major at Wellesley, she is another true trailblazer. She was commissioned through the Air Force ROTC and became a pilot, serving in Operation Desert Storm. She then trained as a test pilot and was selected by NASA as an astronaut candidate. She piloted 2 shuttle flights to the International Space Station, and in 2007, she was named Mission Commander, only the 2nd woman to command a space shuttle mission. She also served as Deputy Administrator of NASA during the Biden administration. Wonderful, Pam. And you will also meet Mfoniso Udofia, a daughter of Nigerian immigrants and celebrated playwright and screenwriter. She has added so much to the Boston theater scene that Mayor Michelle Wu officially proclaimed November 6th, that 2024, as Mfoniso Udofia Day. She arrived at Wellesley thinking that she wanted to be a lawyer, until Wellesley opened the door to witnessing moving theater, and then provided the opportunity for her to perform in opera and theater, and she found a new direction. At Wellesley, we want to nurture more leaders in the visual and performing arts, just like you. Welcome. And so as we think about what we are doing to do that, in fact, we want to develop more leaders in the visual and performing arts who can illuminate our own experience in the world, as well as leaders in all fields informed by the arts. And that's why we're reimagining the west side of our campus as a place for making, experiencing, and learning about art. We've already successfully renovated Pendleton West as a home for music and studio art. And since 1993, we've had the Davis Museum, a major resource for learning. Now we intend to renovate the iconic Paul Rudolph-designed Jewett Arts Center to encourage all Wellesley students to learn about interdisciplinary arts. We expect to make arts teaching at Wellesley more inclusive and dynamic, and the same way that our science complex has brought new energy into our teaching in the sciences. The Jewett-Davis Pendleton complex will become a vibrant hub for the arts through which we will aim for every student to experience art in many different ways. Moving forward, the humanities are more likely to become even more important as our students wrestle with generative AI personally and professionally. They will need to think deeply about what it means to be human and what leaders can do to ensure that humanity is valued in a world of machine intelligence. A background in the humanities is a wonderful preparation for such questions. As an institution, we're also thinking very seriously about how to help our students in all disciplines become fluent in AI. We've just appointed our first cohort of Gen AI Literacy Faculty Fellows to consider AI's role in research, pedagogical innovation, and community engagement. These fellows, along with alumni who are on the front lines of AI, will participate in a collaborative activation the first weekend in May, which will explore how AI is taught, used, and governed. This is yet another powerful example of how our world-class faculty and alumni together are preparing students to be the informed and ethical leaders we need in a rapidly changing world. So 150 years after our founding, Wellesley still welcomes students from all socioeconomic backgrounds. We still provide a world-class education across all disciplines, no matter what their career path. But we also offer our students entry into the most powerful women's network in the world, and that is the Wellesley Alumni Network. You have always opened doors and held them open for generations of Wellesley women to follow. As the world adjusts to AI, the network that you represent is more important than ever. So I hope you'll get involved with our amazing Lulu Chow Wong, Class of '66, Center for Career Education. And Jen Pollard is here. There you are in the back. Just look at Jen. She's right there in the back. And consider partnering with our team to support an internship program development, and pipelines for employment for graduating students in what we know will be challenging, an increasingly challenging job market. And I have one more request. Today I want to ask you to use your voices and your influence to support and defend Wellesley College and higher education in general. You can help us simply by talking about what we are doing right. If the topic comes up with friends, colleagues, or any organization that you're affiliated with. Colleges and universities are not blind to public opinion, and as a sector, we've been making ourselves more accountable for years now, controlling costs when we can, and working hard for excellent outcomes of our students. But we know that over the past year, there's really been an onslaught nonetheless from Washington. One of the areas where Americans believe higher education is doing good or an excellent job is advancing research and innovation. Yet billions have been taken out of research and innovation for reasons that have nothing to do with research and innovation. So in seeking to hurt higher education, especially the most highly selective schools, we are really threatening the source of future leaders and of discoveries and ideas that keep the United States truly competitive on a world stage. And they are, I worry, therefore, potentially injuring our nation's future. So as this country's founders understood, the key to a successful democracy is an educated citizenry. For 150 years, Wellesley has advanced our democracy by adding superbly educated and empowered women to the American scene. Wellesley has a special role to play at this moment when the need for ethical women leaders has never been more urgent. And for that, again, we need your help. So I am so happy to announce that our 2026 commencement speaker will be Dr. Ruth Simmons. We're giving you a little preview because the announcement's going out tomorrow. Many of you may know her as the first Black president of Smith College. She was also the first, yes, we have some Smith alumni in the room. She was also the first Black president of Brown University, which made her the first Black president of an Ivy League university. And she was the first woman president of Prairie View A&M, a historically Black university in Texas. What is less known about Dr. Simmons is that she spent her junior year here at Wellesley as part of a visitors program with Dillard University, the school that she was attending. And she has said that her Wellesley experience changed the trajectory of her educational aspirations and her life. At this year's commencement, we will celebrate Wellesley's role in her educational journey and her remarkable legacy, expanding opportunity, equity, and excellence in higher education. So thank you. Thank you for being here. And commencement will be live streamed. And now I want to introduce the fabulous Joey Cole, a multi-award-winning broadcast journalist who currently serves as Vice President of MS Now and has graciously agreed to moderate what I know will be an absolutely fascinating discussion with 3 alumni who are absolutely leading the way. Thank you.
I thought I was going to be able to do this without my glasses, but as many of you all know, I'm class of '99, so we're 25 years out, so we need the glasses. First, I want to say thank you, President Johnson. It is always wonderful to work with you and your leadership team. I know that we are all honored to be a part of this important and timely conversation. Before we begin, though, I want to make a note that there are note cards that have been passed out. They were originally at the beginning of the registration table. What we would like for you all to do is, as we have this discussion, if questions come about that you would like to ask one of our panelists, please write that question down and we will get to that in our Q&A portion. Not all of you all, because there's so many of you all, but we will try. And if there is a particular question that you wanted to ask one of our panelists, please write the name so that we make sure that we are directing the question to the right person. Many of the themes that President Johnson spoke about, we will actually be touching upon tonight. And I want to begin with a question that I would like for all of us to consider. How do we lead in a world facing profound global challenges and uncertainty? How do we continue to make decisions that will drive moral clarity and positive progress? So that is where I think we can all sort of begin and to think about tonight's conversation. But I want to start big picture with our panelists. And Ophelia, I want to begin with you. As President Johnson mentioned, you had a close partnership with Dr. Paul Farmer, a renowned global health physician and medical anthropologist. Yes. As President Johnson mentioned, we are in unprecedented times where humanitarian aid has been significantly reduced, life-saving treatment programs have been paused, and the United States has withdrawn from the World Health Organization. So understanding all of this, how has this affected your work? And are you rethinking how to sustain global health efforts?
Thank you, Joey, and thanks to all of you. As I was sitting here, I was thinking, what is it about Wellesley that makes this room with about 250 people in it seem intimate? Yeah. But it does. It feels intimate, and I think it's because we are, we know who we are together. So thank you, and thank you for the question, Joey. It's a rotten time for global health. No bones about it. And I say that after really 20 years of extraordinary gains. And the set of disciplines, really, that makes up global health has experienced real wins and real victories. And one of the things that comes to mind, of course, is the way that funding models have changed over the last 20 years, and new mechanisms are in place, and treatment, and all of that sort of thing. And now we are seeing the sort of complete and abrupt cutting off. If you take even just HIV, AIDS, and you look at what's happened over the last 20 plus years, and the new mechanisms like Global Fund, other mechanisms like PEPFAR, again, sort of bipartisan, not political, but moral. And that was George W. Bush who started PEPFAR. So we've seen many, many, many gains. So this is hard, and very hard for the people who are in the countries that suddenly it's not there. I would say that the global health community, not unlike the higher ed community, is strong. We have partners in hospitals and universities, in governments. We have NGOs. And that group has always been strong, and it has banded together, I would say, better than ever in the last 12 months during these losses. And we've seen that in terms of with real results, including helping organizations, helping governments with their MOUs, for example. PEPFAR, already appropriated funds from this government, helping countries actually write their MOUs and help them decide whether or not these MOUs to release already appropriated funds is good for them based on what this government wants them to do. So I see a lot of partnership. I see the coalitions that we built over time bearing fruit.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Mfoniso, I'm going to turn to you. And you are a storyteller. So I want to ask you, right now, there are so many pressing questions about who gets to find their truth and their history, whose stories are amplified, whose are sidelined. And so I want to dig down deeper with that. As a storyteller, how do you see that art functioning as a form of resistance or even transformation?
I will probably get anecdotal with some of my time at Wellesley. But primarily, I look at the theater stage as a site for rendering humanity, so that you can look at it, see it in almost like a configuration just like this, breathe the same air with another human being, look at that story and see yourself, ask yourself questions about how yourself might behave in that situation, and potentially change. And so the site itself can be such an act of resisting when you're living in a world that is trying to limit you or say this is what is real. And so I go back to my time at Wellesley a lot, which is where I developed my love of theater and of music and became the person I am. And what it was to be in Lois Roach's class in the theater department. Y'all know, some of y'all know her. And I read For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. And I'm just, I'm a little Black kid girl who was trying to figure out Wellesley, didn't quite have my voice yet, really did think I was going to be somebody's lawyer. And I was reading it and I understood so deeply somebody walked away with all of my stuff, which is a line in that play.
Okay.
In the middle of heartbreak, this woman just keeps going, somebody walked away with all of my stuff. And I hadn't gone through it yet, but I understood who I was inside of it.
Yes.
And Lois was like, do it. And I was like, okay. And I ended up acting that piece and knowing I was seen and watching the people see me. And they understood a certain kind of heartbreak that my body knew. And that's what the theater can do. And that's also how you can resist. So when you start putting immigrant bodies on stage, which is what I love to do, in a world that tells you the immigrant is such, it becomes an act of resistance to watch and love, to watch and ask yourself questions. When you start putting queer people on stage, African queer people on stage, you start going, wait, have I ever seen that before? What does it mean to love like that? And then maybe when you leave the theater, you behave differently when the world tells you something else. And so the stage is a site of rendering humanity's we could be, and that is resistance itself for me. Yeah, that's how I answer that.
Great. Pamela, President Johnson touched upon it, especially with Wellesley and now incorporating artificial intelligence into our educational program. For you, what do you see are the biggest challenges with artificial intelligence and opportunities? And how do you see these tools being developed and used going forward?
Yeah, this is a really interesting subject. AI, I think, let's put it this way, everybody's ready to tell you all about the opportunities, right? I don't need to share those with you. I think everybody wants to talk about that, how it can change things. Certainly, I think you could give some examples from protein AlphaFold and things like that, finding new medicines, all kinds of opportunities. But here's the challenge. I think it's also fairly well known that a lot of the data that's used to train AI is biased data. And the most visible example of that, I think it's really interesting. It's happened to several friends of mine traveling around the world. The video recognition software is biased against women and people of color. And so it's confused, easily confused, and just people who are just regular, ordinary people have been mistaken, pulled aside, missed their planes, 3 hours. It happens all the time. And that's just a simple example. But I think there's something a lot more fundamental. The reality is humans have trained that AI as well. And that means there is an element of human nature in AI. And if you don't believe me, I will give you a couple of examples. A company that I was working with, and they are developing new proteins for vaccines, et cetera. And I asked about their use of AI, and the founder and CEO said, well, we had some problems with it. We told it to just use this data and not look over here, and it kept looking over there. And you will hear stories from researchers who will tell you that the AI will argue with you when you try to correct it and say, no, that's actually not true. And as you're trying to go on, well, I mean, does that sound like a 2-year-old to you? It sure does to me. So they do learn faster. AI learns faster than a human does. But I think, to me, it is very much, I think, like raising a child. You have to, we have built in human nature into our AI programs, which means that we need to understand how to nurture, protect, correct, and even punish if we have to. And people are doing this, real researchers are doing this all the time. They're like, okay, you're wrong and you're arguing with me, I'm not gonna give you another problem to work on. And it is happening out there in the research community. And so I think what's interesting about it is if you can see that, I mean, it's not magic, right? In fact, we have built it as humans. And so it has all of our flaws too. And that means we need to work together the same way we do to raise our children, to be friends, to have relationships, to build a community, to make sure that we're using, that we're growing our AI before we let it loose on the biggest problems of the world. Amen.
Pamela, if you will allow me, I want to stay with you as we talk about global pressures affecting women. I want to ask you about the recent resignation of climate scientist Kate Marvel from NASA. Her main reason for leaving was lack of federal funding. My question is, what does this signal about the long-term impact of losing experts in STEM? And how concerned should we be about the pipeline for women and entering into this field and actually staying in this field?
We should be very concerned, Joey. And there is a narrative out there right now that basic science is not relevant in this world, that we should only be funding applied science. Well, there's a little bit of a problem, which is that you can't apply science that you haven't created, right? It's possible to do that. So many of our modern marvels, such as AI or mRNA vaccines, quantum computing, so many things that we think of, robotic surgery, those were all research areas, very fundamental, very basic research areas in the past. When you actually pull the thread, you see that, in fact, science takes a very meandering path until the right problem comes along to that solution. Here's the problem. If you decide to block the source of that river, the river will dry up. There will be nothing to apply. And it's not just the science that comes to applied science and engineering that makes our lives better and healthier and more convenient and connected. It's actually the pipeline also. The ability to develop people, to ask those questions, to have the expertise in those technical areas. And that's what really concerns me the most. And Kate is fantastic. I actually recruited her to be on a White House advisory group because of her climate expertise. I'm pretty heartbroken. but I'm more heartbroken at the signal that's being sent to all the young women that I hope will look at STEM opportunities in the future.
Thank you. Ophelia?
Yes. Just taking all that in.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. We can pause for a
Yeah,
minute.
no, it's okay.
You've seen firsthand how policy decisions directly impact women's lives. I want to talk about the connection of what you see as with women's health, economic opportunity, and political power.
And we have an hour and a half. Just checking. Everybody here knows that if you provide economic opportunities, good health care, options for policy making, all of that sort of thing, economic opportunities, families, and I'm talking in any families anywhere, but certainly in the Partners in Health context, families do much better, communities do much better. As an alum that many of us admire, Hillary Rodham Clinton said in her landmark speech in Beijing, women's rights are human rights. And I would say that women's health is human health as well. And I think that these are very important times, even though I would say at the moment women are so scandalously unrepresented in policy, and in lawmakers, in politics, and that is across the world. I think that we are now about 25-ish% across the world in terms of governments and positions, and this is not good representation. And even though it increased, I think over the last 20 years, it increased about 10%, but it is thought to be stalled at the moment. And in that stalling, it would take us to reach gender parity about 130 years. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and it speaks obviously to Wellesley College in that respect, and the relevance of what it is we're doing. But I do think that there are places in which it's being done better, and I think you have to do it deliberately. I think a place where PIH works in Rwanda, they have done that deliberately. 30 plus years post a genocide, the deliberate decision to make sure that women held the majority of seats in parliament, and that has stayed. It is a time since then that has shown the steepest declines in mortality ever recorded in history. Connected? I think so. And then in a place that PH works, just thinking about on the ground, and because I'm going there on Saturday in Sierra Leone, one of the most preventable tragedies is mothers dying in childbirth. And with the government of Sierra Leone, with other partners, we've built a maternal center of excellence. And actually, I just noticed this a few days ago, that one of the nurse leaders there, Aissata Dambayo, was named one of 16 Women of the Year by Time magazine. When women are being recognized in this way, it makes a big difference for the work that we all do.
Mfoniso, I want to circle back to you because you've written so deeply about identity and standing in one's truth. As we've talked about, in a world that feels so polarized, how do you see women navigating questions around their voice and their agency?
I'm going to talk about this, of course, inside of the theater, where we we had movements like the Kilroys. If anybody knows the theater scene, you had this big old movement to make sure that theaters were producing women at the same rate of speed as they were producing men, because we were not. And you also, they were like, the Kilroys were like, if we make a list of all the women writers out there that we think are incredible, we will give you the resource because you say you don't have it. And it was an ecstatic moment in time. All the theaters were clamoring after all of those plays, and women were starting to be programmed, and it was incredible. And this is just me speaking quite candidly. Then pandemic happened, and we all went back to one, it felt like. And the question always is this important? How do we get our audiences back? Let's go back to the tried and true. And I go, women's stories are absolutely true stories. They are 50% of our stories. And as a woman writer, the thing that I've had to focus on is not making my work limited, holding the truth of a woman's story at the center and knowing that that truth deserves to be seen. And what's happened is that sometimes you don't get produced as much. That is a truth. But once the theater decides to do it, you watch how it can catch fire. And that is what is happening for certain women playwrights. And they're like, oh, it's amazing. How did that happen? I'm like, well, you decided to tell a story from a vantage point that isn't our town. And it's amazing. Sorry. And so I guess what I would say is for the women creators out there to hold the singularity of their truth at the center of the story, not to bend to what you think the theater wants you to tell, but to tell the truth of what it is for you. And always that little truth burns bright. And it does catch fire, and we will swing around again. We always do. And we sell out the tickets, we sell out the theaters, we do the things. And if we continue banding together, I do think we will have a momentum swing that makes the parity.
I would be remiss if I didn't talk about leadership, as we have women leading the way as our theme tonight. So Pamela, you've said that there's not a women's leadership style, a men's leadership style. What it's really about is being an authentic human being. So I was hoping you could share your thoughts on what authentic leadership looks like, and even particularly when we are in high stakes moments.
Yes, I feel the same way you do. I could talk for an hour and a half about leadership because I'm passionate about it. I got interested in it when I was at Wellesley, and one of the great things that Wellesley teaches you is to be curious, and I've always treated it as an intellectual discipline, meaning you try things, and if they don't work, you figure out why, and you move on. And it was hard because when I started out in the military, I got a lot of coaching and training that didn't feel like it was going to work real well. I had a feeling that people were not going to react to me the way they would react to a 6-foot-tall guy, you know. And so I had to go on a journey to really try to understand that. And it's very hard. Actually, leadership is really hard. But that aha moment was really about realizing how important it is that people trust you. The people that you are leading trust you. What you see is what you get, right? You're not hiding anything. You can be quirky, and they're okay with it as long as you're consistent. And they know what you think about things, and they know what's important to you, and that you're also listening to them. So the trust goes both ways. And what that really means is you have to look in the mirror pretty darn hard and figure out who you really are. All warts and all, right? You've really got to face up to all that.
know where your strengths and weaknesses are, and when you know those things about yourself, you can also be better and more compassionate about the people that you are leading, what their challenges are, what they care about. Every single one of us is on our own journey. Some of this stuff, living life, leading people, comes very naturally in pieces. And then there are other pieces that feel impossibly hard. Like, I just can't do that. That's just so not me. So you have to go on that journey and really understand what's blocking me, because clearly there's a part of myself that I'm not tapping into if this is hard, or I need to learn about it and grow from it. So I think that point of authenticity is what builds the trust between you and the people that you lead. And that is even more critical in times of crisis. And you can only get there day after day after day by being consistent as a leader and trying, apologizing when you make a mistake, making it right, rejoicing in the success of the team. All those little tiny moments add up to a team coming together in a crisis and doing the right thing.
So I want to pose this question to both you, Ophelia and Mfoniso. What does courageous leadership look like? And especially when we are facing institutional and systemic barriers.
Courageous leadership. I think I was just saying it in the back when we were all talking. I have a friend, her name is Loretta Greco, and she is the one who is putting up all of my plays in Boston right now. And she walked in, this is a woman, she walked in before she got her job and was like, there is this playwright, and I want to bring the entire community together. As many institutions, theater, churches, Wellesley is part of this. I want as many people who say yes, whether they are theater adjacent or not, to come to the party. And she brought this to the board of trustees, who were just trying to balance the bottom line. And she was like, I might blow up the bottom line to get there. Will you trust me? Can we think wide? When the theater is shrinking because we don't know where money's coming from, our federal grants have all run out. Theater institutions that were dependent on the NEA no longer can program. And theaters and residency programs, workshops, they are folding across the nation right now. And everyone is going, all we need to do is program small to keep ourselves alive. And this woman was like, we keep ourselves alive by getting big and showing who we are as humans. And that, for me, is courageous leadership and what also Wellesley women do. Instead of being risk averse, they're like, show me where the risk, show me the cliff. I think I can measure the distance and leap. And in times like this, where everything says fold, I do think courageous leadership is going, I know that I can create in this time of scarcity or perceived scarcity and make something monumental. And I can lead the way in that. So for me, that's what courageous leadership is. It's what I try to do, try to create at scale, because why not?
I love it. So true. I could not agree more with my two esteemed panelists. I mean, I really believe this, both in terms of, what it takes in crisis, what it takes in so-called normal times. If you work in global health, there's no time that isn't a crisis. you don't wait for the right conditions. I think the perfect moment is not going to be there. And I would say you lean into the coalitions and the partnerships that you have built, the community that you've built. Mm-hmm. Now, you know, what you were saying rings true also, because I think that this work takes great leaps of imagination, because people who are giving, some of them in this room, to PIH to support the work won't meet the patients and the communities and all of that sort of thing. And my beloved friend and colleague, Paul Farmer, used to regularly say to me, the budgets are a fiction. We make up these budgets. The budgets are made by humans, So the idea of a bottom line, and you could imagine me trying to translate between Paul and the board of directors, coming up with new language and all the rest of it. But, I do think, leadership matters very much in times like this. And I can't help but think about the leadership I saw as a trustee, and some of my fellow trustees are here, at Wellesley during an unplanned, unprepared for crisis, which was the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Watching Paula lean in to her connections, making new groups together, not just women's colleges, but top liberal arts colleges, her connections and coalitions with the medical community, and her team. I mean, I would venture, as someone who had a front row seat to this, that crisis was managed extraordinarily well, and was an example to all of us who are watching it as we do this difficult and complicated work. And I would say, if you are a good leader, you have been building these partnerships. We don't do it alone, and you make sure that you depend upon those in good times and bad times.
Yeah. This leads me to my bonus question. I don't think we can not ask this question, the Wellesley effect, right? So looking back at your time at Wellesley, what seeds of leadership do you think were planted that shaped your path? And Pamela, please include in your answer your Star Trek posters and your space posters in Tower Court dorm room.
Oh, there's so much, but I would say certainly being surrounded by women leaders, formal and informal faculty, but also other student, women leaders, gave me just the absolute supreme confidence that women had tons of leadership ability, and that I could learn it too by watching from them. But I think really the thing that I reflect on that has affected me the most is being exposed to so many people who were different. And for a lot of people in 1979, when I started my freshman year, a woman who said she wanted to go into the Air Force and had pictures of Star Trek in her dorm room, there were people who really did not understand where I was coming from. I would say probably most people thought I was sort of pleasantly cracked, but and I think also for me, for the first time in my life, being exposed to so many international students who had a very different perspective of the United States than I did growing up in a military family household, deep in the heart of America. And those were the beginnings of that curiosity, the interest in hearing other perspectives, because another key part of leadership is building teamwork. And teamwork actually gets its strength from diverse perspectives. So the willingness to listen, the curiosity about, I wish I could hear every single one of your stories, because I know they're all amazing. And I think that was, Wellesley exposed me to so much that way.
I want to next turn to intergenerational leadership and mentorship. Ophelia, what do you think is the difference between mentorship and sponsorship? And how can leaders ensure that they are not just advising younger people, but actually helping them to gain access to opportunities?
Yeah, you know, when you asked me that, I can't help but think, as soon as you said the difference between that mentorship and sponsorship, and I was thinking about transactional or not, and something that's brief, and I couldn't help but think about this sort of tenet that's at the heart of Partners in Health, which is accompaniment. And I feel that that extends to connecting with this extraordinary network of women. And the mentorship that I have been fortunate enough to receive in my life it's profound. It started young, and I still feel, and I think this is part of the Wellesley effect, is that learning isn't something that stops. You don't suddenly stop being a mentee and become a mentor. This is going on all of the time, and I feel that profoundly. I've noticed too that that men, being a mentor versus and being a sponsor is also, it can be bilateral. It really can. And I think I've seen this through, Wellesley. My door is open. I have noticed this about other Wellesley alums. It's not because you're on the board. My email is there. I think that there is a welcoming quality to the women of Wellesley, and and I'm sure if someone from Smith emailed me, I might answer them too. But I feel like it's there, and a little bit like the Wellesley effect. That this is generational. This is generational, and the accompaniment of other people and other women through a generation, really, really means something. Yeah, I would say that sponsorship lasts a lot longer, and that's what I've noticed with many of the relationships with some of the women here in the room, but also women that I met last year that Paula introduced me to, or my new friend right now, for example. She is going to be my new mentor, I can tell you that. Oh, if you don't mind.
Bilateral?
Yes. You bet. You bet.
So this is a great segue to you, Mfoniso. Lifted from your UFOT cycle will be presented at Wellesley this Sunday in Alumnae Hall. You are also engaging with students this semester as a guest speaker. So for those of us who aren't having a play that's going to be featured on Wellesley's campus, how do we build connections not only with the students, but I would say, as I'm thinking about the class of 2026, they are coming upon a moment that is unlike when we graduated. So how do we strengthen our bond with not only students, but with our most recent younger alumni?
So I had a prepared answer for this on what it was to create space. And then I'm so sorry, I'm gonna call out Winnie for a second. I had a conversation with my dear friend Winnie before this. And I'm gonna give y'all an anecdote that I think answers this question for me. And so scrap everything I was gonna say. I don't remember the year anymore because my brain's a little Swiss cheese. But it was a long time ago in the great before. I was in San Francisco and I was putting up a show at the Magic Theater in San Francisco. And Winnie comes, Wellesley alum, with another Wellesley alum, Susan, and they come to my show. And they find me after this show and go, "You went to Wellesley." I was like, because I was also feeling very vulnerable about the show. This was, I think it was Run Boy Run, or was it Sojourners? It was Sojourners. And so this is, in my timeline, this is the maybe second show I've ever done in my entire life. And so they're coming up to me going, "I'm from Wellesley," and in my head I'm like, was it good? These are wealthy women. What is going to happen to me? And it was very much so, let's go out. Let's talk. I didn't have a relationship with Wellesley before that in that way. I had graduated and I'd gone off. And Winnie and Susan were like, we're Wellesley, we have found you. You know what your home base is. Yeah. And we're gonna bring you home. And it was my friendship with them that got me working with the Madeleine Albright Institute.
Okay.
It was through them that I was meeting more and more Wellesley alums, including the secretary herself, before she passed. They fly out to see my shows. They bring other Wellesley alums to see my shows. They had a Wellesley night for the UFOT cycle that was chaired by Winnie. Well, held a lot by Winnie. And then, so I became part of the Wellesley family again and found support again. I was found. Because I was a satellite out there creating on my own. Because that moment after graduation is really tender, it is fraught. The world is breaking. You're trying to figure out how to be an adult and a woman in the world, and you've got all of these ideas about how to construct it. And at that moment in my life, I wasn't trying to go, I'm leaning. I was going, I have to figure out how to charge. That was my mentality. And you do that long enough, I was forgetting to look back. Until I met a couple of ladies who brought me back into a home base. And so that's also how I answer your question. I go, what are you all doing in the world? How are you engaging with your community, knowing that Wellesley women, our Wellesley, not just women, our Wellesley sibling, our Wellesley brethren are out there. And that when you find one of them, especially now in 2026, in these years where it's not just like, how do I make it in the world? It feels as if our world is irrevocably different. The infrastructure is changing. It is, it can feel like an even colder world. If you are out there in the world and you see a Wellesley sibling, I hope you do what Winnie and Susan did with me and be gentle. Especially if you're engaging in their work. Be champions, because you know if you're coming out of Wellesley, you will grow. And provide soft places to land that can help grow that woman, that human, our sibling forward. Yeah.
We have a couple of questions from the audience, but before I get to their questions, I just want to wrap up with one. For each of you, this is a question that I ask. Where do you each find hope?
Should I go first?
I know it's staring at you, yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know, among young people, absolutely no question. You know, I feel as though, and you know, have worked alongside people who would remind me constantly that the conditions that we're living in now were created by humans. Humans can also solve them. And that feels fundamental to me. So there's hope in that statement, but hope in spending time around young people. And again, I'm fortunate in that I get to do that quite a lot. I'll give you one example. A couple of weeks ago, I was in DC for TB Hill Day, Tuberculosis Hill Day, and was there as part of a coalition, but unlikely partners. So it was the PH Engage team. PH has Engage opportunities throughout colleges and universities in the United States, and also with a group of people that call themselves TB fighters that were adapted from nerd fighters, which are John Green, who's a young adult author who wrote The Fault in Our Stars, and he became fascinated when he was introduced to a young patient with tuberculosis, and he has written a book about it called Everything is Tuberculosis. His network brought together young people from all 50 states, every single one of them. They came on their own dime, and they spent 2 days in DC, 1 day training, and they had set up meetings with staffers and people on both sides to try to get this already appropriated, put pressure on them for this already appropriated funds to be released. You spend a couple of days with those people going in and talking to staffers and coming back and feeling exhilarated. It's very hard not to feel that infectiousness and know that, you know, these are people who are working alone, a lot of them remotely. They came together and they were just lifting each other up. And so when you experience that sort of thing, which I encourage us all to do, get involved in something, you'll be with a number of people who might be very different from you. I mean, I don't identify as a nerd fighter, but hey, I'm very happy to be pulled into that community. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Where does hope live for me?
Yeah.
It's actually in what I do. I made my job for me is like the best job. I play all day. Literally, I make plays all day. And there is something so hopeful in watching humans try to come together and figure out play. Now listen, there's some times where I'm with a group and I'm like, why aren't we playing? And it turns into a drama. And that does happen. But the essential goal is to play. And in the playing, a story is made. And then that story shows some humanity, and then we're sitting in conversation around it. My hope is that if we can do that on the stage, it happens. It can happen everywhere. So I've made my career my hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I would say that for me, I also get hope, Ophelia, from young people. But I think, boy, you know, Wellesley teaches you about pattern matching, right? You know, that's sort of the heart of intelligence is, hey, this looks like that. I guess I'm old enough now that I'm starting to see some things. And, it has not escaped me that in the 1960s, we were facing war that was unjust, race riots, and the only element of hope was actually the Apollo program. One of my favorite stories was one of the astronauts in 1969 who flew, got a postcard that said, "Thank you for saving this year for us," because it was the only, they felt it. And so a couple of years ago, I started going, wow, it feels like we're in the 60s again. We're getting ready to go back to the moon. And all this is happening. And it's so exciting that we're going out with humanity into the solar system like people have dreamed of forever. And this time we're going to go to stay, and we're going to practice on the moon, and we're going to go to Mars, and we're going to do all this great stuff. And it just felt like, oh my gosh, are we reliving the 60s? And if you look at history as well, you go back the time between like World War I and World War II, our government was extremely autocratic and a lot of the same things that we are seeing now, like throwing people in jail for criticizing the government and things like that. So I think what gives me hope is to recognize that humanity goes through spirals, but they are going up. They really are. Our lives are better than people's were 100 years ago or 50 years ago because of people like you and you in the room. So I have hope that we have survived these things before. And you're right, Ophelia, people made them, but people got us out of them also. And so to me, maybe it's just enough time has passed that I look at this and I know we're gonna climb out of it and enter something different.
Thank you. We have time for one audience question. I'm so sorry, you guys. But the question is, what from your experiences at Wellesley has been most fundamental to how you show up in the world, and what do you suggest we carry with us?
So much. So much. I mean, you want to start?
No.
Okay. So, I would say one of the things that I think about, and it's connected also to what both of you were saying about what Wellesley does for all of us, which is to obviously not teach us what to think, but how to think. And in that, I think that well, even though I had become interested in the work that I would end up doing before I went to Wellesley changed the way that I was connecting myself to the work. It insisted that we were connected, not just to each other, but obviously to a vast history, to political economy, to all of that sort of thing. So, and that in order to do any of this work of leadership, as we were talking about earlier, whether you want to or not, you have to be a good communicator. And I think about that a lot. You can't, and we pushed on each other for that a lot of the time. And it was not okay to make statements and then walk away. We had to make statements and then back them up and connect with one another across the table. Those connections, the way that we talk to each other then with vast differences, and as you said, like vast difference in backgrounds, it allows me to do things like reach out to governors in states looking for what they have, a connection to Haiti or something like that, and they get back. That's all Wellesley. That's all Wellesley, the building of the courage, the insistence on good communication skills, and making sure that we know we're all connected, so that, as you suggested, we are sitting on the shoulders of all kinds of pioneers.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think the thing that I fundamentally got from Wellesley was that critical thinking and the ability to see the field.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I had before Wellesley, and is something that I use a lot right now, especially in an arts field, which can be amorphous, and there's no one path to take. You have to hack it and make it, and it's going to take you in circles. Well, it took me in circles. So it gave me a clarity of thought and an ability to build frameworks. And that is because at Wellesley, it was like, okay, in ethos, we used to have the Black Arts Committee. It wasn't there when I was there. And it's like, well, we make it again. And Kim Brown was like, how are you gonna make it? And it's like being thrown into the fire, going create. Ethos is your playground right now, let's go. And I was like, oh no, how? But then you take that out into the world when you're an artist. And now the playground isn't the campus, it's New York City. It's Boston, it's San Francisco, it's and it's the same skill set going, how do I see the field? How do I start building the house? What am I putting inside the house in terms of art? And how do I move that house or ship forward? So I got that fundamentally from Wellesley. Yeah.
Amazing.
I think there's a theme here. All of us talk about it a little bit differently, maybe, but that idea that I had so much confidence when I left that I could learn anything. And, but even more than that, the feeling like I deserved to learn anything I wanted to, and no one was going to tell me that I couldn't learn it, or I shouldn't learn it, or I shouldn't be a part of that.
That's right.
Amen. Well said.
Well, this has been such a candid and I would say uplifting conversation this evening. So I would like to thank Ophelia Dahl, Mfoniso Udofia, and Pamela Melroy, and President Johnson for such a wonderful night. Thank you all.
Thank you.